Throughout recorded history, walls and other barriers have served a single function: to divide, to separate. This is true whether walls are built to keep people out or to keep them imprisoned. The wall being constructed on the West Bank by the Israeli government is no different. 25 feet high, studded with guard towers and armaments, and encrusted with high-tech sensors, the wall cuts across the land, separating Palestinians from their own farms, their own neighbors, and from the Israeli settlements which have sprung up rapidly as a result of lavish subsidies from the Israeli government. In November of 2003, Professor James Rauch of the University of California, San Diego, explained how the political climate in Israel led to the building of the wall.
The Israeli public has been clamoring for a separation wall between Israel and the West Bank for some time. The reason is that there is a wall now, or at least a fence, between Israel and the Gaza Strip, and that is generally credited with keeping out terrorists in the Gaza Strip from infiltrating Israel proper. So the idea in most people's minds was, let's build a fence or separation wall along the 1967 boundary between Israel and the West Bank, and this will also keep terrorists from the West Bank out of Israel, much as the barrier between the West Bank, the barrier between Israel and the Gaza Strip has kept people out of Israel. As things have turned out, the wall hasn't been built along the 1967 boundary. Rather, the wall has been built along the boundaries for the Palestinian state that were proposed in the Camp David agreements. Not exactly, but very roughly along those boundaries. So it's been built entirely on the Palestinian side of the 67 border, which has meant confiscation of Palestinian land, and in some places, in particular to take in the settlement of Ariel, the wall has cut very deeply into the Palestinian territories. There is also an eastern section of the wall being proposed and partly started, which will cut off the Palestinian cities from the Jordan Valley region, and that will implement the part of the Camp David Accords which stated that the Jordan Valley region was going to remain under indefinite Israeli military control. So in effect, the wall would unilaterally implement the Camp David proposals back from 2000.
The territories occupied by Israel have become a symbol of the new frontier for Zionist settlers. From around the world, settlers come to Israel, seeking to expand the state, inch by inch, dunam by dunam, which is a local measure of land area equal to 1,000 square meters. Enticed by grants of $15,000 per settler, specially reduced tax rates, business subsidies, and a network of bypass roads that lead directly to the new settlements and are forbidden to Palestinians, the Israeli settlers have succeeded in confiscating 55% of the land occupied by Israel in the Six-Day War, with most of this expansion taking place since the 1980s. Professor Rauch described how the rate of Israeli settlement increased since the time of the Y Accords in 1998, and how it continued to grow through the period of the Camp David negotiations in 2000. He also explained how these settlements affect the local Palestinians.
In 1998, with the signing of the Y Accords, Y Accords, these settlements were increased or accelerated by Ehud Barak, the Prime Minister of Israel at the time, from 9,000 to 12,000 per year to 15,000 per year. And the idea here was to get as many settlements built and get as many settlers into the West Bank as possibly could be done before any final agreement would be concluded. So leading up to the Camp David negotiations, you had a continued settlement expansion through the entire Oslo period, with an acceleration of settlement expansion at the end of the Oslo period. Now, when we talk about settlements, we need to be clear that this doesn't mean your friendly Jewish neighbor moving into the house next door. What this means is confiscation of land which the Palestinians had used for farming or for orchards or were planning to expand their villages or cities onto, this land would be confiscated by the Israeli occupation authorities, and then a big housing development, very similar to the type that you see here in Southern California, would be built upon the confiscated land. Then the land or the settlement would be connected to Israel, pre-1967 Israel, by what's known as a bypass road. That is, this is a special road built for use of Israeli citizens only to connect the settlements to the rest of Israel, basically so that people could commute back and forth to jobs and schools and so forth. The settlements also use the water supplies of the nearby Palestinian communities, intended to drain the water aquifers and make it hard for those communities to continue farming and to continue to be viable communities.
Professor Rauch explained that the mindset of the settlers and the economic incentives of the Israeli government have led to further encroachment on Palestinian lands.
The settlers themselves tended to be divided into two groups. There are about a third that are ideological settlers, that is, they see settlement as redeeming the land for Israel, for the Jewish people. And then there are two-thirds of the settlers who are coming for economic reasons. That is, they are responding to incentives provided by the Israeli government in terms of cheap utility hookups, better school facilities, housing subsidies, and so forth. And these economic incentives were estimated by the World Bank to run at about $1 billion a year.
With nearly 250,000 settlers already in place, the Israeli government has created an entrenched voting bloc of citizens. And with each denium of land that is confiscated by settlers, Israel achieves a new bargaining position from which to negotiate the fate of the remaining Palestinian territories. In effect, the settlements make it possible for the Israeli government to say to the world, "We cannot go backward and dismantle our settlements. They are hard facts and must be accepted as such, even as we build more each day." Stationed outside the town of Jayus, Steve Floor of ISM explains the meaning of the wall.